In the previous videos, we learnt about Stephen Hawking, about his three books, the very three important books that he wrote: A Brief History, A Briefer History, and The Universe in a Nutshell. And later on, the fourth book that he wrote, The Grand Design. All these books of his goes on to speak about what he believed in the concept of what is called as God as the creator, space, time, and the future for mankind. Now, in this next part of the chapter, we are going to learn more about Stephen Hawking, about his life, about the disability that he suffered, and how he went on to courageously move on in life in spite of it. So, let's move on, class, with the chapter. It is not necessary to invoke God to light the blue touch paper and set the universe going, Hawking said. So that was the previous video told us about his belief in God. So he goes on to tell us that it is not necessary that we keep on praying to God to touch the blue paper. The blue paper means the sky, whereby we pray that is fine, let everything be fine. So, this was not what Hawkins believed in. At the age of 21, Stephen Hawking was diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. In a very simple sense, the nerves that controlled his muscles were shutting down. At the time, doctors gave him 2.5 years to live. So it was at the age of 21, when he was studying cosmology at Cambridge College, that he came to know of this particular disease, whereby in this disease you have automatically your nerves and muscles growth starts becoming abnormal and it stops functioning. And that's when the doctor told him he has just 2.5 years to live. That means by the time he will be around 23 and a half, 24, he will pass away from this earth. That is what the doctors told. Hawkins first began to notice problems with his physical health while he was at Oxford. On occasion, he would trip and fall or slur his speech. He didn't look into the problem until 1963 during his first year at Cambridge. For the most part, Hawking had kept these symptoms to himself. But when his father took notice of the condition, he took Hawking to see a doctor. For the next 2 weeks, the 21-year-old college student made his home at a medical clinic where he underwent a series of tests. So initially, Hawking noticed there was some problem when it came to his physical movement when he was at Oxford. He would, without any reason, he would just trip and fall, or his speech would be slurred meaning suddenly he would babble, his speech was not clear, his tongue would come into the way, something was wrong with his speech. But he avoided that. He thought it was just, just like that, nothing is wrong with it, till the problem started increasing. And that time, by then he was in Cambridge College, that is 1963, and the symptoms started increasing. Symptoms, the signs of his physical problem started increasing. He was still avoiding it, but it was his father who noticed it. And that's when he was taken to a doctor, and the doctor then realized something is wrong with Stephens, and that's when he was told to undergo different tests. They took a muscle sample from my arm, stuck electrodes into me, and injected some radio opaque fluid into my spine, and watched it going up and down with x rays as they tilted the bed. He once said, "After all that, they didn't tell me what I had, except that it was not multiple sclerosis and that I was an atypical case." Okay, so finally he had to go to the medical clinic. He went through a lot of tests, electrodes. Electrodes. I'm sure you must have seen that sort of kind of wires which are put forward, and then there is a machine which goes on to examine what is happening within the body, goes on to check all different organs also of yours. And a kind of a liquid is put. Usually this liquid is population color, which helps to detect if there is any problem in your organ. So that is what was done, and that is when the doctors told him that probably he is an atypical case. Now, what is the meaning of atypical case? Atypical case meaning something is surely abnormal in him. Something is wrong with his inner system of the body. But it is not multiple sclerosis. So, not to worry. Eventually, however, doctors did diagnose Hawking with early stages of ALS. It was devastating news for him and his family, but a few events prevented him from becoming completely despondent. So it says, finally doctors realized and diagnosed, they came to a conclusion that, well, he's actually an ALS, he's suffering from this disease where the muscles and the nerves start having an abnormal growth. But it says something within him did not make him completely despondent. Despondent meaning upset or very sad. Now, what was that incident which gave him courage or did not make him sad? The first of these came while Hawking was still in the hospital. There he shared a room with a boy suffering from leukemia, blood cancer. Relative to what his roommate was going through, Hawking later reflected his situation seemed more tolerable. Not long after he was released from the hospital, Hawking had a dream that he was going to be executed. He said this dream made him realize that there were still things to do with his life. Two things happened in his which gave him a lot of courage. Number one, when he was in the hospital, his roommate, the other patient in the same room, was a young boy, much younger to him, who was suffering from blood cancer. And the sufferings that that boy was going through, Hawkins felt it was nothing to what Stephens had. That means that boy was suffering much more than what Stephen Hawking was going through. So Stephen Hawking felt that means he should learn to tolerate or learn to take the pains. Secondly, he says when he was discharged from the hospital, he had this weird kind of dreams, very funny dreams. In the dream, he saw that he was going to be executed to be hanged to death. And that is when he realized that now is the time, probably something is signaling him that he should now pursue his dreams. Probably he really has very few years in his hand. And that's when he came up to that conclusion, or he made up his mind that there was a lot of things to do in his life and he might as well do it and not think that this disability that was taking place in him should be any reason to stop him. How courageous, very, very courageous. In a sense, Hawking's disease helped him become the noted scientist he is today. Before the diagnosis, Hawkins hadn't always focused on his studies. Before my condition was diagnosed, I had been very bored with life, he said. They had not seemed to be anything worth doing. With the sudden realization that he might not even live long enough to earn his PhD. Alright, so he says before he could suffer from the disease, he was taking life very easily. He was thinking life is so boring, nothing to do in his life. But suddenly, when he realized that my God, life is so short, anything can happen to me now that I am suffering from the disease. So let me do what I always wanted to do. And that's when he started pursuing a dream. That's when he said, let me do in my PhD degree. That is a doctorate degree. And that's what the writer tells us over here. If not for this, probably the disease, we would have missed having Stephens as the greatest scientist. So, class, many a times Something sad or something difficult in our lives can be a can be a changing path, can actually bring a lot of positivity. So many times certain difficulties, certain negativity takes us towards positivity, and that is what Stephen Hawking tells us out over here. Quickly, let us mark the grammar out here. You have the word in the third line simple. Noun form will be in the second paragraph, third line. Simple, it will be simplicity, noun form. Next line, his muscles were shutting down. The underlined word is shutting, and you have to tell me what kind of a verb it is. So it's a participle, it's a non finite verb, and it's a participle. Next paragraph, third line, he didn't look into the problem, add a question tag. Your answer will be, he didn't look into the problem. Did he? And a question mark. Because the sentence is in the positive, therefore, question tag changes to negative. Same paragraph, leave the next line, come after that. You have the sentence there. He took Hawking to see a doctor. Mark to see, again, what kind of a verb it is? It's an infinitive because you have to plus the verb see. So to plus a verb, it's an infinitive. A little above that, you have the word notice. Give me the adjective form. It will be noticeable. Okay. Come a little lower down. You have over there the sentence. It was devastating news for him and his family. Rewrite in the past perfect continuous tense. So your answer will be, it had been a devastating news for him and his family. I want to show you the pictures of Stephen Hawking with his parents. Here you see as a little infant child with his mom and dad, and a little lower down with his mother as a grown up boy. And I also want to show you at the age of 29 how he looked, 50 how he looked, and finally at the age of 76. So you see the difference that took place even when it came to his physical appearance because of this disease. So we will continue with the next part in the next video.